Before the universe had a shape, before the universe contained stars, before galaxies traced spirals across space, before light could travel freely, the universe did not yet have a recognizable shape. There were no distances in the familiar sense, no landmarks, no directions. Space itself existed in a different condition, compressed, energetic, and uniform beyond anything that could exist today. This earliest universe was not empty. It was filled with energy at temperatures so high that stable matter could not yet exist. What we now call particles appeared only briefly, forming and dissolving again almost instantly. Nothing lasted long enough to develop structure or identity. At this stage, the universe was not made of objects. It was made of conditions. Pressure dominated everything. Energy flowed freely. Interactions happened everywhere at once because separation had little meaning. Gravity was present, but it was too weak to shape anything yet. Expansion ruled the universe's behavior, and that expansion did not occur into space. Space itself was expanding. There was no center from which everything moved outward. Every region of the universe expanded away from every other region simultaneously. Distances increased not because matter was flying through space, but because the fabric defining distance was stretching. As space expanded, the universe cooled. Cooling did not happen suddenly. It unfolded gradually over hundreds of thousands of years. As temperatures dropped, conditions changed slowly enough to allow matter to persist for longer periods. Protons and neutrons began to combine, forming the first atomic nuclei, mostly hydrogen, some helium, almost nothing else. Still, the universe remained opaque. Electrons moved freely, constantly scattering light. Photons could not travel far before colliding with charged particles. The universe was filled with radiation, but none of it could move independently across long distances. Darkness, in the modern sense, did not yet exist. Time itself felt different during this era. Not because time had not begun, but because there were no long chains of cause and effect. Without stable matter, processes had no memory. Change occurred everywhere, but nothing accumulated. Yet small differences existed. Tiny fluctuations in density, so small they would have been impossible to notice, were already present. These fluctuations were not created later. They were part of the universe from its earliest moments, embedded within its uniformity. They mattered. As expansion continued and the universe cooled further, another transition quietly occurred. Electrons began binding to atomic nuclei. Atoms formed for the first time. Light was finally released. This moment is known as recombination. But it was not a flash or an event you could witness. It unfolded slowly across the entire universe. As atoms formed, light stopped scattering constantly and began to travel freely. The universe became transparent. That first light did not come from stars. It was the afterglow of the early universe itself, stretched and cooled over billions of years. That same light still exists today as a faint, uniform background filling all of space. With transparency came darkness, not because light vanished, but because there were no sources yet to create it. The universe entered a long era without stars, without galaxies, without illumination. This darkness was not empty. Matter drifted slowly under gravity's influence. Those tiny early fluctuations began to matter more. Where density was slightly higher, gravity worked a little longer. Where density was slightly lower, expansion carried matter away. Nothing dramatic happened. No sudden collapse, No instant structure, just patience. This long, dark era allowed gravity the time it needed to begin shaping the universe. The quiet after the cosmic explosion was not an absence of activity. It was the beginning of slow organization. In the next chapter, we'll move into this dark age, when the first structures formed not through force or urgency, but through time, just as the universe prefers. The long dark age. After light was released and the universe became transparent, there was no immediate illumination to replace it. The first glow faded into the background, stretched thin by expansion, leaving behind a universe that was visible in principle, but unlit in practice. This period is known as the Long Dark Age. It was not dark because something had gone wrong. It was dark because nothing had yet begun to shine. The universe now contained atoms, mostly hydrogen, with traces of helium, and vast amounts of empty space between them. Expansion continued to increase those distances, cooling the universe further. Energy that once dominated behavior had dispersed enough for matter to persist, but not enough for light to be generated anew. There were no stars, no galaxies, no points of reference, only matter, drifting slowly. Gravity, which had been present from the beginning, finally began to matter. For hundreds of thousands of years, pressure and radiation had overwhelmed gravity's influence. But as the universe expanded and cooled, pressure weakened, radiation thinned. Gravity, patient and persistent, began to shape motion over long timescales. This shaping was subtle. Gravity did not pull matter into immediate collapse. It worked slowly, amplifying the tiny density differences that had existed since the earliest moments. Where matter was slightly more concentrated, gravity acted a little longer. Where matter was slightly less dense, expansion carried it farther apart. Over millions of years, these small differences grew. Matter began to collect into faint regions of higher density. Not objects yet, not clouds in the familiar sense, just gentle concentrations, barely distinguishable from their surroundings. The universe was still quiet. No sound could exist without air. No light without stars. No motion fast enough to draw attention. Change occurred at a pace that would feel indistinguishable from stillness. Yet this stillness was active. Hydrogen atoms moved through space, responding to gravity's pull. They gathered into vast, diffuse regions, spanning distances far greater than any structure that would form later. These regions were the ancestors of everything that followed. At this stage, the universe was simple. Almost all matter behaved the same way. There were no heavy elements yet, no chemistry beyond the simplest atomic interactions. The complexity that defines the modern universe had not begun. But simplicity is not stagnation. Given enough time, even the smallest imbalance becomes significant. The universe had time in abundance. Expansion did not prevent gravity from working. It slowed interactions, but it did not stop accumulation where gravity was strong enough. Dark matter played a crucial role here. Unlike ordinary matter, dark matter does not interact with light. It does not heat up or cool down in the same way. It began to clump earlier, forming invisible scaffolding that ordinary matter would later follow. These dark matter structures shaped the universe long before the first stars appeared. They defined where matter could gather most efficiently. Ordinary matter fell into these gravitational wells slowly, guided by a structure it could not see. The universe was organizing itself without illumination. This organization was not designed. No pattern was chosen. No structure was planned. The universe did not anticipate galaxies or stars. It allowed gravity to explore possibilities, settling gradually into arrangements that could persist. Persistence mattered more than speed. Regions where matter gathered too densely too quickly heated up, resisting further collapse. Regions where matter was too diffuse drifted apart. Only where conditions balanced did structure continue to grow. This balance emerged naturally. As hydrogen clouds grew denser, their internal motions changed. Atoms collided more frequently, temperatures rose slightly, pressure increased, gravity continued pulling inward. For millions of years, nothing crossed a threshold. Then, slowly, some regions became dense enough to collapse further. These collapsing regions were still enormous, far larger than any star. They fragmented under their own gravity, breaking into smaller clumps. Each fragment continued collapsing, heating as it did. This heating was important. As hydrogen gas compressed, temperatures rose high enough to change atomic behavior. Electrons moved faster. Collisions became more energetic. The gas resisted collapse more strongly, slowing the process. Again, patience dominated. Collapse did not accelerate unchecked. It proceeded in stages, regulated by the physics of gas, radiation, and gravity. The universe allowed only what could remain stable. Eventually, in the densest regions, something new occurred. Temperatures became high enough for nuclear fusion to begin. The first stars ignited. This moment did not happen everywhere at once. It occurred locally, in isolated regions where conditions aligned. The universe did not light up suddenly. It gained points of light gradually, like distant embers appearing in an immense darkness. These first stars were unlike stars today. They were massive, hot, and short-lived. Made almost entirely of hydrogen and helium, they burned their fuel rapidly. Their light was intense, but brief on cosmic timescales. For the first time since the universe became transparent, light was being generated again. This light did not travel through a neutral universe. As the first stars shone, their radiation altered their surroundings. Hydrogen atoms absorbed high-energy photons and became ionized once more. Small bubbles of ionized gas formed around early stars, carving regions of clarity into the surrounding darkness. This process was slow and uneven. Some regions lit up earlier than others. Some remained dark for hundreds of millions of years. The universe did not synchronize this transformation. It allowed it to proceed locally, guided by structure and chance. This era is known as reionization. It did not erase the quiet. It changed its texture. Light returned, but sparsely. Darkness remained the dominant state. The universe was still mostly empty, mostly silent, mostly patient. Yet everything that would follow depended on this era. The first stars forged the first heavy elements in their cores. When they died, often in violent explosions, they scattered these elements into surrounding space. Carbon, oxygen, and other building blocks of complexity entered the universe. For the first time, these elements changed what was possible. Future stars would form differently. Planets would eventually assemble. Chemistry would grow richer. But none of this happened quickly. The long dark age did not end abruptly. Even as stars formed, vast regions remained unlit. Even as light returned, most of space stayed dark. The universe did not transition from dark to bright. It layered light on top of darkness. This layering persists today. Most of the universe remains empty space. Most of it is dark between stars and galaxies. Light occupies only small islands of structure, surrounded by vast distances where nothing shines. This distribution reflects the universe's nature. It does not concentrate activity evenly. It allows it where conditions permit and leaves the rest untouched. The quiet after the cosmic explosion was never replaced by noise. It was refined into contrast. Light and dark, structure and space, activity and calm. These opposites coexist without conflict. The long dark age was not a waiting period. It was an essential phase in the universe's development. Without it, gravity would not have had time to work. Without it, structure would not have formed gently enough to persist. The universe does not rush its transformations, it allows them. In the next chapter, we'll follow the first light forward into the formation of galaxies, the emergence of large-scale structure, and the patterns that still define the universe today. Slowly, quietly. When light began to organize space. When the first stars ignited, they did more than illuminate the darkness. Their light began to change how the universe behaved. For the first time since recombination, radiation was no longer a uniform background. It came from specific locations, traveled across growing distances, and interacted unevenly with matter. Light introduced contrast, not everywhere bright, not everywhere dark, but regions where energy reshaped its surroundings. These early stars did not exist in isolation. They formed in groups, bound together by the same gravitational structures that had guided matter during the Dark Age. Over time, these groups grew larger, merging into the first proto-galaxies. A galaxy did not appear suddenly. It assembled slowly, through accumulation rather than design. Gas flowed along invisible paths shaped by dark matter. Smaller structures merged into larger ones. Gravity gathered matter where it could, ignoring regions where expansion dominated. The universe did not decide to form galaxies. It allowed gravity to organize matter where conditions permitted stability. As galaxies began to form, light became more than a local phenomenon. It started to trace structure. Where matter gathered, stars formed. Where stars formed, light followed. Over time, illumination began to map the underlying distribution of matter. Light revealed shape, not shape in the sense of edges or boundaries, but shape as pattern. Filaments of galaxies stretched across space. Clusters formed at intersections where matter flowed inward from multiple directions. Between them, vast voids remained, containing little more than diffuse gas and dark matter. This pattern is known as the large-scale structure of the universe. It was not imposed from above. It emerged from below. Tiny early fluctuations, amplified over billions of years, became the scaffolding of everything visible today. The universe did not smooth itself into uniformity. It differentiated, allowing contrast to grow. Expansion played a quiet role in this differentiation. As space stretched, regions that were already dense resisted expansion more effectively. Regions that were empty expanded more freely. Over time, this difference exaggerated itself. Dense regions became denser. Empty regions grew emptier. The universe learned to separate. Light followed this separation. Galaxies clustered into filaments and knots. Voids remained dark, not because light could not pass through them, but because there were no sources within them. Darkness became structural. It was no longer just absence. It was part of the universe's geometry. As galaxies matured, stars formed in successive generations. Each generation carried the chemical imprint of the one before it. Heavy elements accumulated slowly, changing how stars behaved and how planetary systems could form. Light became more varied. Different stars emitted different colors. Some burned hot and blue, others cooler and red. Over time, galaxies developed complex internal structures: spiral arms, dense cores, extended halos. Yet despite this growing complexity, the universe remained mostly unchanged at large scales. Expansion continued steadily, Gravity continued locally. Time continued everywhere. The universe did not become busier. It became more detailed in specific places. This balance between local complexity and global calm defines cosmic evolution. Activity concentrates without spreading uncontrollably. The universe allows islands of structure within an ocean of space. Light, in this context, does not conquer darkness. It punctuates it. Even today, most of the universe is dark. Not because light is absent, but because distance is vast. Light travels, but it thins. Intensity fades with scale. Darkness is not opposition. It is the default state between sources. This was already true when the first galaxies formed. Their light did not fill space evenly. It traced paths, connected regions, and left gaps untouched. The universe did not become uniformly bright. It developed contrast that would persist for billions of years. As galaxies merged and evolved, larger structures appeared. Clusters formed, containing hundreds or thousands of galaxies bound together by gravity. These clusters became the brightest regions of the universe, dense with stars, gas, and dark matter. Between clusters, filaments stretched across hundreds of millions of light years. Between filaments, voids expanded quietly. This architecture did not require guidance. It arose from simple rules applied over immense time. Gravity pulled, expansion stretched, matter responded, light followed, nothing rushed. The universe did not need to reach this state quickly. It allowed structure to emerge at the only pace available, slow enough to remain stable. This slowness is why structure persists. Rapid formation would have led to collapse or chaos. Slow formation allowed balance. The universe favored what could last. As light organized space, it also began to carry information. Photons leaving distant galaxies carried signatures of motion, composition, and distance. As space expanded, those photons stretched, their wavelengths increasing. Light recorded expansion without intention, embedding cosmic history into its journey. Even now, when we observe distant galaxies, we are not seeing them as they are. We are seeing them as they were. Light takes time to travel. The farther it comes from, the older the information it carries. Observation becomes a form of time travel, not through movement, but through delay. This delay is fundamental. It means the universe cannot be seen all at once. Different regions appear frozen at different stages of evolution. The present is layered with the past, arranged by distance. The universe reveals itself unevenly. Light, which once could not move freely, now moves constantly, but never instantaneously. It connects regions slowly, allowing awareness, but preventing immediacy. This limitation is not accidental. It preserves causality. It prevents collapse into simultaneity. It allows the universe to unfold as a sequence rather than a blur. As galaxies continued to form and light continued to travel, the universe settled into a familiar rhythm. Structure grows locally. Space expands globally. Time allows change. This rhythm has not altered since the first stars ignited. The quiet after the cosmic explosion was not replaced by activity. It was layered with structure. The universe did not abandon calm. It embedded complexity within it. In the next chapter, we'll explore how expansion never stopped and how the universe continues to stretch even now, shaping its future as gently as it shaped its past. The expansion that never ended. As galaxies formed and light began to trace structure across space, another process continued quietly in the background. It did not pause for stars to ignite. It did not slow when galaxies assembled. It did not stop once structure appeared. the universe kept expanding. This expansion is often misunderstood because it doesn't behave like motion in everyday life. Galaxies are not flying outward from a central point. There is no explosion pushing matter away. Instead, the fabric of space itself continues to stretch, increasing the distance between regions that are not gravitationally bound. Everywhere at once. From within a galaxy, this expansion is invisible. Stars remain in orbit. Planets continue their paths. Gravity holds local systems together without difficulty. Expansion does not compete with these forces at small scales. It operates where gravity is weak. Between galaxies, across vast cosmic distances, expansion dominates. The farther apart two regions are, the more space stretches between them over time. This stretching is subtle moment to moment, but undeniable across billions of years. Light reveals this process. As photons travel through expanding space, their wavelengths stretch along with it. Light shifts toward longer, redder wavelengths. This redshift is not caused by motion through space in the usual sense. It is caused by space itself changing while the light is in transit. In this way, expansion writes its history into light. By measuring how much light has stretched, astronomers infer how much the universe has expanded since that light was emitted. These measurements show a universe that has been expanding continuously since its earliest moments, not slowing to rest, not reversing direction, continuing. For a long time, it was assumed that gravity would gradually slow this expansion. Matter pulls inward. Over enough time, it seemed reasonable that expansion might decelerate, perhaps even halt. For billions of years, this appeared to be true. But careful observations told a different story. When astronomers measured the distances and brightness of very distant supernovae, they found something unexpected. The universe was not just expanding. The rate of expansion was increasing. Expansion was accelerating. This acceleration was not obvious. It revealed itself only through subtle differences in light arriving from billions of light years away. Yet the evidence was consistent. Independent measurements pointed to the same conclusion. Something was causing expansion to speed up. To account for this behavior, cosmology introduced the concept of dark energy. Dark energy is not energy in the familiar sense. It does not clump into objects. It does not shine. It does not interact with matter in any direct way we can observe. It appears to be a property of space itself, causing space to expand more rapidly as it grows. This idea is unsettling because it resists visualization. Dark energy does not announce itself through events. It has no location. It has no edge. Wherever space exists, dark energy appears to exist as well, influencing the universe uniformly. Its effect is quiet but profound. As the universe expands, dark energy becomes more influential. Matter spreads thinner, weakening gravity's ability to slow expansion. Expansion, in turn, accelerates further. This feedback does not lead to runaway chaos. It leads to gentle separation. The universe grows larger, faster. This acceleration does not tear galaxies apart. It does not disrupt clusters where gravity holds structures together. It affects only regions where gravity is already weak. Isolation increases. Over immense spans of time, galaxies outside local groups will drift beyond observable reach. Their light will stretch until it becomes too faint to detect. Not because those galaxies vanish, but because space between us and them grows too large. This future is not violent. It is quiet. The universe does not collapse inward or explode outward. It thins. It stretches. It allows regions to become increasingly independent. This independence reflects a pattern established early on. The same expansion that cooled the universe enough to allow atoms to form now cools interactions by increasing distance. Early expansion created possibility by lowering density. Later expansion limits interaction by separating structure. In both cases, expansion defines context rather than outcome. It does not decide what forms. It decides how much room exists. This continuity is important. The universe did not experience expansion as a phase that ended. It began in expansion and has never left it. Everything that has happened, recombination, the Dark Age, star formation, galaxy assembly, has unfolded within an expanding framework. Expansion is not something the universe does. It is something the universe is. This realization reframes the idea of a beginning. The cosmic explosion was not an event that finished. It was the start of a condition that continues to define reality. The quiet after that explosion is not silence after noise. It is expansion, expressing itself over time. Even now, as you listen, space is stretching, not perceptibly, not urgently, but consistently. Nothing resists this stretching globally. Gravity holds local systems together, but it does not reverse expansion at the largest scales. The universe does not seek equilibrium between expansion and collapse. It allows imbalance to persist. This persistence has consequences for the universe's long-term future. As expansion accelerates, large-scale structure becomes increasingly isolated. The cosmic web thins. Filaments stretch. Clusters become islands surrounded by vast expanses of space. Yet nothing breaks. Structures remain intact where gravity binds them. The universe does not destroy what it creates. It simply separates creations over greater distances. This separation does not signal an ending. It signals continuation. Expansion does not aim toward a final state. It does not rush toward emptiness. It proceeds according to the same rules that have always governed it, indifferent to milestones or outcomes. The universe does not mark time. It unfolds within it. In the next chapter, we'll step back even further, looking at the universe's large-scale structure as a whole, how matter arranges itself into filaments and voids, and what that shape tells us about the quiet forces still at work, without interruption. Next, the shape that emerged slowly. As expansion continued and galaxies gathered into clusters, the universe began to reveal a form that could only be seen from a great distance. Not a shape with edges or boundaries, but a pattern. Subtle, immense, and patient. Matter was not spread evenly. From the earliest moments, tiny variations in density had existed. Expansion stretched them, gravity amplified them. Over billions of years, those faint differences became the large-scale structure of the universe. This structure is not solid. It is a network. Vast filaments of galaxies and dark matter, intersecting at dense nodes surrounded by enormous regions where very little exists. Astronomers call this the cosmic web. The cosmic web did not appear suddenly. It grew slowly, guided by gravity's long reach and expansion's quiet separation. Where matter was slightly denser, gravity drew more matter in. Where matter was sparse, expansion carried it farther apart. Over time, these tendencies reinforced themselves. Dense regions grew denser. Empty regions grew emptier. This separation did not create sharp boundaries. Filaments fade gradually into voids. Clusters do not end abruptly. The universe prefers gradients over edges, transitions over borders. Dark matter shaped this process from the beginning. Because dark matter does not interact with light or heat in the same way as ordinary matter, it began forming structure earlier. It clumped first, creating invisible scaffolding across space. Ordinary matter followed later, falling into these gravitational wells once the universe cooled enough. In this sense, galaxies formed where structure already existed. The visible universe traces an invisible framework. This framework spans hundreds of millions of light years. Filaments stretch farther than individual galaxies can travel in their lifetimes. Voids expand quietly, growing larger as matter drains away from them. The universe does not fill space evenly. It organizes itself where it can, and leaves the rest undisturbed. From within a galaxy, this structure is impossible to see. The Milky Way appears isolated, surrounded by darkness. Only when many galaxies are mapped together does the pattern emerge. Understanding the universe requires distance. At small scales, detail dominates: stars, nebulae, planetary systems. At large scales, detail dissolves into statistics. Individual galaxies blur into distributions. Motion becomes drift. The cosmic web exists only at this largest scale. It is not something the universe built intentionally. It is the outcome of simple rules applied over immense time. Gravity pulls, expansion stretches, matter responds. Nothing more is needed. This simplicity is deceptive. The cosmic web appears complex, but it arises from repetition rather than design. The same interactions occur everywhere, gradually shaping space into a network that looks intricate only because of its scale. Scale creates complexity. At human scales, gravity seems weak. At cosmic scales, given enough time, it becomes decisive. The universe allowed gravity the time it needed. This patience defines everything that followed. As the cosmic web matured, galaxy clusters grew. Mergers became common within dense regions. Gas heated, cooled, and recycled. Stars formed in waves, then slowed as fuel was consumed. Yet even as complexity increased locally, the universe remained calm globally. Expansion continued without interruption. Large-scale structures stabilized. The overall pattern persisted. This persistence is striking. The universe does not reinvent its structure often. Once patterns emerge, they remain for billions of years, changing only gradually. The cosmic web today still reflects the imbalances of the early universe. The beginning is still visible, not as an event, but as structure. Light carries this structure forward. When we observe distant galaxies, we see the cosmic web at earlier stages. The farther we look, the younger the pattern appears. Observation becomes layered history. The universe presents itself unevenly in time. There is no single now across cosmic distance. Each region we observe exists at a different moment in its evolution, arranged by how long light has traveled to reach us. This layering reinforces the universe's quiet character. There is no sudden revelation. Understanding accumulates slowly through comparison and patience. The universe does not reveal itself all at once. It allows itself to be inferred. As expansion accelerates, the cosmic web will change. Filaments will stretch. Clusters will become more isolated. Voids will grow, larger and emptier. But the pattern will not vanish suddenly. It will thin. This thinning mirrors the universe's overall trajectory. From dense beginnings to spacious futures, from frequent interaction to rare contact, from noise to quiet. The shape of the universe is not fixed. It is a process. A process that began with near uniformity, grew into contrast, and continues to evolve without urgency. The cosmic web is not a final form. It is a moment in an ongoing unfolding. In the next chapter, we'll shift perspective again, away from structure and toward observation itself. We'll explore what it means to understand a universe that has no center, no edge, and no preferred point of view. A universe without a center. As the large-scale structure of the universe became clearer, another realization followed quietly behind it. The universe has shape and pattern, but it does not have a center. This idea is difficult to absorb because human experience is centered by default. We experience the world from a single point, looking outward. It feels natural to assume that the universe must also be organized around some central location. It is not. Wherever you are in the universe, expansion appears the same. Distant galaxies recede in every direction. There is no privileged vantage point, no region from which the universe looks more complete or more ordered than any other. This symmetry is not coincidence. It reflects the way expansion works. Space itself stretches uniformly. No matter where an observer is located, the same large-scale behavior appears. The universe does not expand away from something. It expands everywhere at once. This means there is no edge. The observable universe has a boundary, but that boundary is defined by time and light, not by structure. We can see only as far as light has had time to travel since the universe became transparent. Beyond that horizon, the universe almost certainly continues in the same way. The horizon is not a wall. It is a limit of access. Understanding this removes a common misunderstanding. The universe is not an object sitting in a larger space. It is the space in which objects exist. Asking what lies beyond the universe is like asking what lies north of the North Pole. The question assumes a framework that does not apply. This lack of a center does not make the universe disordered. It makes it consistent. The same laws operate everywhere. The same physics governs stars in distant galaxies as governs matter here. This universality allows prediction. When astronomers observe distant galaxies behaving in ways that match physical laws tested locally, it confirms that the universe does not privilege location. What happens here is not special. This realization reshapes perspective. Human existence is not located at a central point in the universe, but it exists at a particular scale. At that scale, certain structures are visible. Certain processes matter. This does not diminish significance. It contextualizes it. Significance does not require centrality. The absence of a center also changes how beginnings are understood. The cosmic explosion did not occur at a single location. It occurred everywhere. Every region of the universe was once in that hot, dense state. The beginning is not behind us in space. It is behind us in time. This distinction matters because it removes the idea of a privileged origin point. There is no place you could travel to where the universe began. There is only a time you could never reach because it is not a location. This perspective makes the universe feel less like a story with a starting scene and more like a condition that changes over time. Conditions do not require centers. They require consistency. The universe provides that consistency generously. Expansion follows the same rules everywhere. Gravity behaves the same way everywhere. Light travels at the same speed everywhere. This sameness allows coherence. Despite its vastness, the universe does not fragment into incompatible regions. Its laws unify it, even as expansion separates regions physically. This unity is not enforced by proximity. It is enforced by law. Law does not require communication. The universe does not need to transmit instructions across space. Each region behaves according to the same underlying principles without needing coordination. This autonomy creates calm. There is no central command directing cosmic evolution. No master clock synchronizing change. No reference point anchoring meaning. Everything unfolds locally. within a globally consistent framework. This has implications for observation. Because there is no central vantage point, understanding the universe requires combining perspectives. No single observation tells the full story. Patterns emerge only through accumulation, many observations across many directions over long durations. Understanding becomes distributed. Knowledge does not reside in a single image or measurement. It grows through synthesis. The universe does not reveal itself all at once. It allows understanding to assemble gradually. This gradual assembly mirrors cosmic evolution itself. Just as structure emerged slowly from tiny fluctuations, understanding emerges slowly from limited data. Both processes rely on patience. The universe does not hurry. This unhurried nature is not an obstacle. It is a feature. It allows stability, persistence, and coherence. A universe that changed too quickly would be impossible to understand. The absence of a center also dissolves hierarchy. No galaxy is more fundamental than another. No region carries greater importance. Differences exist, but they are contextual, not absolute. This removes competition from cosmic scale. The universe does not arrange itself around importance. It arranges itself around stability. Stable configurations persist. Unstable ones fade. Nothing is ranked beyond this. This neutrality allows diversity. Galaxies differ widely in shape and size. Environments vary dramatically, yet all operate under the same laws. Variation exists without favoritism. This balance between uniform law and diverse outcome defines the universe's character. As expansion continues, this lack of centrality will become even more apparent. Distant regions will drift beyond observation. Each observer will see only a portion of the universe, centered on themselves by necessity. Yet, none will occupy a true center. The universe does not grant such positions. Understanding this can feel unsettling at first. It removes the comfort of centrality, but it also removes the burden of it. Nothing depends on being at the center. Nothing requires cosmic importance to exist. Existence does not need to be central. It needs only to persist. In the next chapter, we'll follow this perspective forward in time, exploring how the universe ages, not toward an ending, but toward increasing quiet, where separation grows and interaction thins. Slowly, when the universe began to grow quiet. As expansion continued and structures settled into long-lasting patterns, the universe entered a new phase. Not a dramatic transition, and not a moment that could be marked on a timeline, but a gradual shift in character. The universe began to grow quieter. This quiet was not the absence of activity. Stars continued to burn, galaxies continued to orbit and merge. Light continued to travel across space. But the frequency of interaction began to change. Events that were once common became rarer. Distances grew. Time between encounters lengthened. The universe did not slow down. It spread out. In its earliest eras, matter existed close together. Interactions were constant. Energy moved rapidly from one place to another. As space expanded, those same processes had more room to unfold. The universe did not remove motion. It diluted it. Dilution is subtle. From within a galaxy, very little appears different. Stars still shine. Gas still collapses into new generations of stars. Gravity still governs motion locally. The quiet does not arrive all at once. It accumulates. On larger scales, however, the change is unmistakable. Galaxy clusters grow more isolated from one another. Filaments stretch thinner. Voids expand. The cosmic web becomes more pronounced, not because structure increases, but because space between structures grows. The universe does not erase what it has built. It separates it. This separation changes how influence works. Light from distant galaxies weakens as it travels. Signals stretch. Information arrives older, fainter, and eventually not at all. Regions of the universe begin to lose contact with one another. This loss is not sudden. There is no moment when a galaxy disappears. Its light simply redshifts beyond detection. It still exists. It simply becomes unreachable. Expansion does not destroy connection. It makes connection increasingly unlikely. The universe becomes quieter not by silencing events, but by spacing them farther apart. This spacing affects star formation. Early in cosmic history, galaxies formed stars rapidly. Gas was plentiful. Collisions and mergers were common. Over time, gas was consumed or locked into stars and remnants. Star formation slowed. The universe did not run out of stars. It ran out of opportunities to make them quickly. Most galaxies today form far fewer stars than they once did. Their brightest eras are behind them. Not because something failed, but because conditions changed. Expansion reduced density. Fuel became harder to gather. Stars that already exist continue their long lives. Small stars burn steadily for trillions of years. Larger stars live briefly but dramatically. The universe does not favor one over the other. It allows all lifetimes to coexist. This coexistence contributes to quiet. Long-lived stars provide steady light without disruption. Explosive events still occur, but less frequently. The universe's energy output becomes smoother, less punctuated. Black holes, too, contribute to this calm. Once formed, black holes change very slowly. They can persist for immense spans of time, influencing their surroundings without announcing themselves. They do not shine unless actively feeding. Much of their existence is silent. Silence becomes structural. It is no longer just the absence of sound or light. It becomes the dominant condition between sources of activity. Most of space contains very little matter. Most time passes without notable events. This was always true to some extent. But as expansion continues, it becomes more pronounced. The universe does not transition into stillness. It transitions into spaciousness. Spaciousness changes how time feels. When events are rare, waiting becomes the dominant experience. The universe waits between interactions. It does not anticipate what comes next. It allows change to arrive on its own schedule. This patience is built into physics. Gravity operates slowly. Expansion unfolds smoothly. Energy redistributes gradually. Nothing in the universe is designed to hurry. Urgency is a local phenomenon. It arises where systems are constrained, where energy is concentrated, where competition exists. At cosmic scale, constraints loosen. Energy spreads. Competition fades. The universe becomes less crowded. Crowding creates noise. Space creates calm. As space increases, the universe becomes more independent. Regions evolve according to local conditions without interference from distant events. The universe does not require coordination to function. Each region unfolds on its own. This autonomy is not isolation in a negative sense. It is the natural outcome of expansion. The universe does not attempt to remain connected. It does not resist separation. It allows regions to drift apart gently, without tearing, without collapse. This drift is quiet. No alarms sound. No thresholds are crossed abruptly. The universe does not announce its aging. Aging, at cosmic scale, is gradual and subtle. The universe does not become old suddenly. It simply becomes more spaced out. Even now, this process is underway. The night sky already shows it. Most galaxies visible to us are faint. Their light has traveled for billions of years. Much of the universe lies beyond what we can see, not because it is empty, but because distance has grown too large. The universe is already quieter than it once was. Yet it is not empty. Structure remains. Motion persists. Time continues to allow change. The quiet is not an ending. It is a condition shaped by expansion, patience, and scale. In the next chapter, we'll move further into the future, not to predict an ending, but to understand how the universe continues when interaction becomes increasingly rare, without drama, without urgency, the future without an ending. When thinking about the future of the universe, it is easy to imagine a final moment, a collapse, a freeze, or a dramatic conclusion that mirrors the intensity often associated with beginnings. But the universe does not appear to be moving toward an ending in that sense. It is moving toward continuation. As expansion accelerates, the large-scale behavior of the universe becomes simpler rather than more complex. Interactions thin, distances grow, structures that are not tightly bound drift beyond contact, yet nothing fundamentally stops. Time continues to pass. Galaxies that remain gravitationally bound will continue their slow internal evolution. Stars will age and fade according to their own timescales. Long-lived stars will persist for trillions of years, shining steadily while the broader universe stretches quietly around them. The future is not empty. It is sparse. Sparsity does not imply absence. It implies distance. Events still occur, but they occur in isolation. Each region of the universe becomes its own quiet environment, largely unaffected by what happens elsewhere. This independence reshapes cosmic history. Instead of a single, shared story, the universe becomes a collection of parallel unfoldings. Each cluster carries its own future forward, governed by the same laws but disconnected from distant regions. There is no coordination across these futures. The universe does not attempt to synchronize its evolution. It does not wait for one region to catch up with another. Each proceeds according to local conditions, unaware of the rest. This lack of synchronization does not cause disorder. It creates calm. Without the need to interact, regions do not compete for influence. Without communication, there is no feedback loop that could amplify instability. The universe becomes quieter because it becomes more independent. Over immense spans of time, star formation will slow further. Gas will be locked into stars or remnants. New stars will become rare. Galaxies will gradually dim, not because they cease to exist, but because fewer new sources of light appear. Light does not disappear, it thins. As stars exhaust their fuel, they leave behind long-lasting remnants. White dwarfs, neutron stars, black holes. These objects persist far longer than the stars that created them. They change slowly, emitting little energy. The universe transitions into an era dominated by endurance rather than activity. Black holes, in particular, represent this endurance. Once formed, they can persist for timescales that dwarf the current age of the universe. Their interactions become rare. Much of their existence is defined by stillness. Even black holes are not eternal in the strictest sense. Over unimaginable durations, they slowly lose mass through processes that are subtle and extremely gradual. This loss does not create spectacle. It unfolds quietly, without event. The universe does not collapse when this happens. It continues. As energy disperses further, the universe approaches states that change more and more slowly. Not because time ends, but because gradients flatten. Without sharp differences in energy, processes lose urgency. This does not eliminate motion. Particles still move, fields still fluctuate. Space-time continues to evolve. But change becomes increasingly subtle, spread over vast durations. The universe becomes gentle. There is no final silence. There is no moment where everything stops. There is only a progression toward quieter conditions, where existence persists without emphasis. This perspective reframes the idea of cosmic fate. The universe is not headed toward destruction or resolution. It is headed toward spaciousness, toward a condition where continuation does not require interaction, and where existence does not announce itself. This trajectory mirrors the universe's past, from dense beginnings to expansive present, from frequent interaction to rare contact, from noise to quiet. The future continues this trend, not as a goal, but as a consequence. The universe does not seek rest, it allows it. Understanding this future does not require imagining absence. It requires imagining scale. Time stretched so far that change becomes gentle, and distance so vast that interaction becomes rare. In such a universe, nothing is lost suddenly. Everything fades gradually. This gradual fading is not failure. It is consistency. The same laws that govern the universe's beginning continue to govern its future. Expansion persists. Gravity shapes what remains bound. Time allows change. Nothing interrupts this pattern. In the final chapter, we'll return to the beginning, not to repeat it, but to understand it differently. We'll reflect on what it means that the universe began quietly, and that it continues in that same quiet way. Rethinking the beginning. When we look back toward the earliest moments of the universe, it is tempting to imagine a dramatic opening scene. A flash, a rupture, a sudden burst that defines everything that follows. Language encourages this image. Even the phrase cosmic explosion suggests sound, force, and outward motion. But the universe did not begin with drama. It began with conditions. What we call the beginning was not an event happening in space. It was a state of space itself. There was no surrounding silence to be broken, no external darkness to be illuminated. The universe did not arrive into something else. It simply existed in a different form. This changes how the beginning should be understood. The early universe was intense, but it was also uniform. Energy was everywhere. Density was everywhere. There were no edges, no gradients strong enough to create structure yet. In many ways, this uniformity was quieter than what followed. Noise requires contrast. The early universe had very little contrast. Everything was nearly the same everywhere. Differences were tiny, almost imperceptible. The universe was not chaotic. It was smooth. As expansion proceeded, contrast slowly increased. Temperature differences grew, density variations amplified. Structure emerged. What we often imagine as the universe calming down was actually the universe becoming more textured. The quiet after the cosmic explosion was not silence after violence. It was the beginning of differentiation. Expansion lowered energy density. Cooling allowed matter to persist. Gravity began to matter. These changes did not introduce noise. They introduced possibility. The universe did not become louder. It became more capable of forming structure. This reframing matters. It suggests that calm is not something the universe reaches after activity. Calm is something the universe carries with it, even at its most extreme. The early universe was not restless. It was constrained. Everything followed simple rules under extreme conditions. There was no instability, no turbulence in the way we imagine it. The universe expanded smoothly, predictably, without interruption. The dramatic language we use comes from human intuition, not from cosmic behavior. Explosions in everyday life involve matter expanding into surrounding space. They create shockwaves. They are localized and violent. The universe's beginning was none of these things. There was no surrounding space. There was no shockwave. There was no center. Expansion happened everywhere, evenly. The universe did not tear itself apart. It unfolded. This unfolding continues today. Every moment of expansion is an echo of those earliest conditions, not an echo in sound, but in behavior. The universe still stretches space the same way it did then. It still cools as it grows. It still allows structure to form where conditions permit. The beginning is not behind us as a distant event. It is embedded in the present. The cosmic background radiation is one reminder of this. It is not debris from an explosion. It is light that has been traveling since the universe became transparent. It fills space uniformly, quiet and faint, carrying information without urgency. That light does not announce the beginning. It whispers it. Likewise, the large-scale structure of the universe still reflects the early fluctuations imprinted at the beginning. The cosmic web is not a later invention. It is the early universe, stretched and matured. Understanding the beginning this way removes the sense of rupture. There was no moment when the universe stopped being one thing and became another. There was no sharp boundary between chaos and order. There was continuity. The universe did not recover from its beginning. It evolved from it. This continuity makes the universe easier to live with, conceptually. There is no mystery gap where explanation must stop abruptly. There are limits to knowledge, but behavior remains consistent across those limits. The universe does not hide a different set of rules behind its beginning. It uses the same rules throughout. What changes are conditions, not laws. This consistency allows the universe to remain intelligible even as it exceeds comprehension. We may not be able to see the earliest moments directly, but we can infer them because the same principles still apply. Inference replaces spectacle. Understanding replaces drama. This shift in perspective aligns with how the universe actually behaves. It does not perform. It does not climax. It does not resolve. It continues. The quiet after the cosmic explosion was not an aftermath. It was the start of patience. Patience allowed gravity to work. Patience allowed stars to form. Patience allowed galaxies to assemble. Patience allowed complexity to arise without collapse. Without patience, nothing would have lasted. This patience is not intentional. It is structural. The universe's scale forces slowness. Its laws reward stability. Rapid change dissipates. Gradual change persists. The universe favors what can endure. In this sense, the beginning set the tone for everything that followed. Not through force, but through restraint. Not through urgency, but through allowance. The universe did not hurry into existence. It unfolded into duration. In the final chapter, we'll step back one last time, not to add new information, but to let everything settle. We'll reflect on what it means to live in a universe that began quietly and continues the same way. The quiet that continues. When all of this is taken together, the expansion, the darkness, the slow emergence of structure, the thinning of interaction, it becomes clear that quiet is not a phase the universe passes through. It is the universe's default state. Activity exists, but it is local. Brightness appears, but it is temporary. Events occur, but they are brief compared to the vast stretches of time between them. The universe spends most of its existence not doing anything dramatic. This is not emptiness. It is balance. The quiet after the cosmic explosion was never silence after sound. There was no sound to fade. There was only expansion settling into scale, energy redistributing, and time allowing change without urgency. The universe did not calm down. It revealed what it had always been. Even in its earliest moments, the universe expanded smoothly. Even at its highest energy, it followed simple, consistent rules. There was never a moment of disorder that needed correction. There was continuity from the start. Understanding this changes how beginnings and endings are imagined. There is no sharp beginning that must be explained away, and no dramatic ending waiting ahead. There is only an unfolding that began under extreme conditions and continues under quieter ones. This unfolding does not point toward conclusion. It points toward continuation. The universe does not move toward resolution. It does not seek rest. It does not progress toward meaning. It simply persists, allowing structures to form where conditions permit and allowing them to fade when they no longer can. Persistence is not effort. It is the natural result of laws operating consistently. Everything that exists does so temporarily, including stars, galaxies, and even large-scale structures. Yet existence itself does not end. It changes form. It redistributes. It stretches. The universe does not hold on to what it creates. It allows it to pass. This allowance is gentle. There are no cosmic alarms, no universal signals marking transitions. Change arrives quietly, spreads slowly, and then becomes background. Even now, the universe continues this pattern. Expansion stretches space. Light travels and thins. Time passes without reference. Most of this happens beyond observation, without witness. The universe does not require attention to function. It does not wait to be understood. Understanding, when it occurs, is local. It happens within small systems that can reflect, remember, and interpret. These systems exist briefly within the larger continuity, shaped by the same laws that govern everything else. The universe does not elevate these moments. It allows them. This perspective does not diminish experience. It softens it. There is no pressure to align with cosmic purpose, no demand to matter at universal scale. The universe does not impose significance. It does not remove it either. Meaning exists where it forms, without needing validation. The quiet that continues is not emptiness. It is space. Space for structure, space for change, space for time to unfold without direction. The cosmic explosion did not break the universe into motion. It revealed motion as the universe's condition. And that motion, stretched across immense scale, feels like calm. Not because nothing happens, but because nothing needs to hurry. The universe continues, patient, expansive, and uninterrupted. And that is how it began. The universe without witness. After stories end, the universe does not adjust itself. There is no acknowledgement that something has been explained, concluded, or understood. Expansion continues. Space stretches. Time allows change to proceed without pause. Nothing shifts because attention has moved on. This is not indifference, it is consistency. The universe does not behave differently when it is observed than when it is not. Galaxies do not alter their paths because no one is watching. Stars do not change their lifetimes because their light goes unseen. Motion continues whether it is measured or ignored. For most of cosmic history, there was no witness. Before the first stars formed, before light sources punctuated darkness, before structure made contrast visible, the universe existed without anything capable of noticing it. Vast stretches of time passed without awareness, memory, or reflection. Yet nothing was missing. Existence did not require acknowledgement. This remains true now. Even in regions filled with light, awareness is rare. Even where stars are abundant, perception is local. Most of the universe remains unwitnessed at any given moment. Its processes unfold without registration. This lack of witness does not reduce reality. It clarifies it. Reality does not wait to be confirmed. It does not need to be framed. It does not depend on perspective to proceed. It follows its laws without reference to interpretation. Time, especially, does not notice observation. Seconds pass whether or not they are counted. Ages unfold without record. The universe does not slow because no one is measuring its pace. It does not hurry when attention returns. Time is indifferent to awareness. This indifference allows continuity to dominate. Continuity does not require memory, anticipation, or intention. It requires only that each moment follows from the previous one, according to consistent rules. The universe satisfies this requirement effortlessly. Each configuration leads to the next. Nothing interrupts this sequence. Even dramatic events, supernovae, collisions, collapses, do not interrupt continuity. They are transitions between states, not breaks. After the event, expansion resumes. Gravity persists. Time continues. The universe absorbs events without disruption. This absorption is quiet. Shock waves dissipate. Energy redistributes. Structure settles. What appears dramatic locally becomes negligible when spread across cosmic scale. The universe does not linger on moments. It moves through them. This movement does not require awareness. It does not pause for understanding. It does not slow for meaning. The universe does not carry a narrative forward. It carries conditions forward. Conditions change. Energy thins. Distances grow. Interactions become less frequent. None of this requires decision or direction. It follows from expansion and conservation. The universe ages without reflection. Aging at cosmic scale is not deterioration. It is dilution. Density decreases. Contrast softens. The universe becomes more spacious, not less real. Spaciousness is not emptiness. Even in vast voids, space-time exists. Fields fluctuate. Particles move. Expansion continues. Nothing vanishes simply because it is far apart. Distance does not negate existence. It separates it. As separation increases, interaction becomes rare. Regions drift beyond influence. The universe does not prevent this. It does not maintain connectivity. It allows distance to do what distance naturally does. This allowance leads to silence. Silence not as absence of activity, but as absence of coordination. Processes continue independently, without interference. The universe becomes quieter because fewer things meet. Meeting requires proximity. As proximity decreases, silence grows. This silence does not arrive suddenly. It accumulates. Over billions, then trillions of years, the universe becomes less conversational. Fewer exchanges of energy, fewer interactions, more isolation. Yet nothing collapses. Isolation does not destroy structure. Bound systems remain bound. Galaxies remain intact. Stars continue burning. The universe does not punish separation. It allows autonomy. Autonomy at cosmic scale means regions evolve without reference to one another. No region needs to know what another is doing. No region waits for confirmation before continuing. This distributed evolution is stable. A centralized universe would be fragile. A universe dependent on coordination would fail when communication thinned. The universe avoids this by never depending on coordination in the first place. Law replaces communication. Each region behaves according to the same principles without instruction. Gravity does not need to be transmitted. Expansion does not require synchronization. Time does not need to be shared. The universe functions locally and consistently. This consistency allows it to persist indefinitely. Not eternally in the abstract sense, but continuously, moment to moment, without requiring correction. The universe does not drift into incoherence. It remains intelligible even as detail fades. Detail fading is not loss. It is simplification. As energy spreads, fewer distinctions remain. As distinctions fade, fewer interactions occur. As interactions thin, silence increases. This process does not erase reality, it refines it. Refinement removes unnecessary complexity. What remains is structure that can persist without support. Long-lived stars, stable particles, black holes, expanding space. The universe keeps what can endure. Endurance does not require awareness. Even black holes, often imagined as dramatic, spend most of their existence in near stillness. They change slowly. They interact rarely. Their presence is defined by persistence, not activity. The universe favors this mode. Active phases are brief. Quiet phases dominate. Over long durations, the universe resembles stillness, punctuated by rare change. Stillness is not stagnation. Motion continues at every scale, but it does not accumulate into disruption. Fields fluctuate. Particles move. Space-time evolves. The universe remains dynamic without being noisy. Noise is a product of density. As density decreases, noise fades. This fading is gentle. Nothing is shut off. Nothing is removed. Processes simply become less frequent. The universe does not transition into absence. It transitions into spaciousness. Spaciousness accommodates existence without emphasis. There is no need to announce what happens, no need to record it, no need to frame it as progress or decline. The universe unfolds without commentary. This unfolding does not exclude meaning. Meaning exists locally, where systems can remember and interpret. But meaning does not propagate globally. It does not alter expansion or gravity. It does not accumulate. Meaning is allowed, not absorbed. The universe provides conditions under which meaning can arise, but it does not require meaning to continue. It does not react to it. This neutrality is stabilizing. A universe that responded to meaning would be unstable. Feedback between interpretation and structure would create unpredictability. The universe avoids this by remaining indifferent. Indifference here is not neglect. It is reliability. The universe can be relied upon to behave consistently, regardless of interpretation. This reliability allows understanding to form without influencing outcome. Understanding is observational, not causal. The universe does not change because it is understood. It is understood because it does not change unpredictably. This distinction matters. It allows contemplation without consequence. It allows reflection without interference. It allows silence to exist without needing to be filled. Silence does not demand explanation. It allows continuation. As time stretches further, witness becomes increasingly unlikely. Not because awareness disappears everywhere, but because regions become disconnected. Awareness remains local. The universe becomes vast enough that no single awareness can encompass it. This does not reduce the universe. It releases it from being held. Nothing needs to hold the universe in mind for it to exist. It does not require observation to remain coherent. It does not need attention to justify persistence. The universe exists whether or not it is noticed. This was true at the beginning. It remains true now. And it will remain true as expansion continues, as silence grows, and as interaction thins further. The universe does not anticipate a moment when it must be observed to continue. It continues because continuation is its condition. Time after memory. As the universe continues to expand, time does not stop behaving the way it always has. Seconds still follow seconds. Change still unfolds. Physics remains consistent. But the experience of time, if it could be experienced at all, changes its character. Time outlives memory. Memory is fragile at cosmic scale. It requires structure, energy, repetition, and protection from entropy. It survives only where systems are dense enough, stable enough, and active enough to maintain it. As the universe grows more spacious, these conditions become increasingly rare. Time, however, does not depend on memory. It flows regardless. Long after records fade, long after structures dissolve, time continues to allow one configuration to follow another. The universe does not keep track of what it has been. It does not compare past to present. It simply moves forward. Forward in this context does not imply direction. It implies sequence. Sequence is fundamental. Even without witnesses, without clocks, without events worth noting, there is still a next moment. The universe does not skip moments. It does not compress itself into stasis. It unfolds steadily, even when nothing remarkable happens. Most of the universe's future consists of these unremarkable moments. As star formation slows and then nearly ceases, as galaxies dim and interactions thin, the universe enters an era dominated not by activity, but by endurance. Structures that remain are those that change slowly enough to survive. Change does not disappear. It becomes subtle. White dwarfs cool gradually. Neutron stars spin down over immense timescales. Black holes persist almost unchanged for durations that dwarf the current age of the universe. Space itself continues to expand, quietly increasing separation. In such a universe, memory has nowhere to anchor. There are fewer events to mark time, fewer contrasts to distinguish one era from another. Without frequent change, the past does not stand out from the present. History blurs. This blurring does not erase sequence. It erases significance. Time continues to pass, but it passes without milestones. There are no beginnings or endings to emphasize. The universe moves through states that differ only slightly from one another. This is not timelessness. It is time without punctuation. In earlier eras, time was punctuated by transformation, recombination, star formation, galaxy assembly. These events divided cosmic history into recognizable phases. In the far future, such divisions disappear. Time becomes smooth. Smooth time does not rush. It does not wait. It does not build toward anything. It simply extends. The universe does not mark anniversaries. It does not recognize duration. It does not accumulate age as an identity. It is not aware that it is old. Age is an external description, applied by observers who compare states across time. Without observers, there is no aging. There is only continuation. This continuation is not uniform everywhere. Local systems still experience change. Particles decay, orbits shift, fields fluctuate. But these changes do not accumulate into large-scale transformation. They are absorbed by the vastness of space and time. The universe becomes forgiving, Small changes do not propagate far. Disturbances fade quickly relative to scale. Nothing builds into instability. Nothing cascades into chaos. Chaos requires interaction. As interaction thins, chaos loses its foothold. This is why the far future is often described as calm rather than violent. Not because the universe becomes inert, but because its remaining activity is isolated and slow. Time stretches these processes until they feel almost still. Almost. Even in extreme futures, motion persists. Quantum fluctuations continue. Space-time curvature evolves. Expansion remains active. There is no final freeze where nothing happens. The universe does not lock itself, it loosens. As distances grow and interactions weaken, the universe becomes less constrained. Without dense matter to shape curvature strongly, space-time flattens further. Without gradients to drive rapid change, energy redistributes gently. Gentleness dominates. This gentleness does not require intention. It arises naturally from scale. Large systems change slowly because they must. There is too much distance, too little interaction, too much time. The universe is too big to hurry. In such an environment, memory becomes unnecessary. Memory evolved to manage complexity, to track change, to predict outcomes. When change is minimal and outcomes are stable, memory serves little purpose. The universe does not store what it no longer needs. This is not loss. It is efficiency. Efficiency at cosmic scale is not about speed or optimization. It is about persistence. Systems that persist do so because they require little upkeep. They remain close to equilibrium, changing slowly enough to endure. The universe favors these states. This favoring is not selective in the biological sense. It is structural. States that dissipate quickly vanish. States that dissipate slowly remain. Over time, what remains is what changes least. Time amplifies this effect. The longer time extends, the more dominant slow-changing states become. Fast processes exhaust themselves. Rapid transitions complete. Only gradual evolution persists. The universe becomes dominated by long durations rather than events. Duration replaces narrative. Narrative requires contrast. It requires before and after. It requires change that matters. Duration smooths these distinctions until they fade. This does not make the universe meaningless. It makes it spacious. Spaciousness allows existence without emphasis. Things can exist without needing to be remarkable. Processes can continue without needing to justify themselves. The universe does not seek to be interesting. It seeks nothing. Seeking implies desire. Desire implies dissatisfaction. The universe exhibits neither. It continues because continuation is permitted by its laws. Law does not tire. Law does not reflect. Law does not need memory. It applies in each moment without reference to previous ones. The present contains everything needed to determine the immediate future. The past is implicit, not consulted. This implicitness defines physical time. Physical time does not carry narrative weight. It carries sequence. Each moment replaces the last without ceremony. Ceremony is a human addition. In the far future, even the possibility of ceremony fades. Systems capable of interpretation become rare. Awareness becomes localized or disappears entirely. The universe does not register this change. It does not miss awareness. Awareness is not a requirement. For most of its existence, the universe was unaware of itself. For most of its future, it likely will be again. This is not regression. It is normalcy. Awareness is the exception. Time without memory is the rule. In this state, the universe continues as it always has, through lawful change, without storing its past or anticipating its future. Anticipation requires goals. The universe has none. Goals imply preferred outcomes. Preferred outcomes imply selection. The universe does not select, it allows. Allowance is neutral. Anything that can persist will persist. Anything that cannot will fade. No judgment is applied, no preference enforced. Time accommodates both outcomes equally. As memory fades, so does the distinction between early and late. The universe does not carry its age forward as identity. It does not become something else because it has existed longer. It remains itself. Selfhood, here, is not personality. It is consistency. The universe remains consistent in how it behaves, even as conditions change. This consistency allows it to exist indefinitely, without needing to reference what it once was. The beginning does not define the future. It sets initial conditions. Those conditions unfold according to law, not destiny. Once unfolded, they do not echo as memory. They shape structure, then recede. Time carries their consequences forward without carrying their image. This is why the universe can age without nostalgia. There is no longing for earlier eras, no attachment to denser times, no preference for complexity over simplicity. The universe does not remember when it was brighter. It does not care when it was smaller. It exists now as it exists now. This present-focused existence is not a limitation. It is stability. Stability allows continuity without accumulation of burden. The universe does not carry the weight of its history. It does not need to reconcile past and present. It simply replaces one configuration with the next. When matter becomes rare, as time continues to extend beyond familiar scale, the universe does not lose matter suddenly. There is no moment when particles vanish, no instant when substance gives way to emptiness. Matter becomes rare the same way everything else in the universe changes, gradually, unevenly, without announcement. Rarity replaces abundance. In earlier eras, matter was everywhere. Gas filled space. Stars formed frequently. Galaxies collided and merged. The universe was dense enough that interaction was common. Over time, expansion stretched those same quantities across larger and larger volumes. Nothing was removed. Everything was spread. As distances increased, matter did not disappear. It simply occupied more space. The same number of particles were distributed more thinly, making encounters less likely and accumulation slower. This thinning alters how matter behaves. When particles are close together, they interact often. Forces overlap. Energy transfers quickly. As separation increases, interactions weaken. Forces still act, but their influence fades with distance. Gravity remains long-ranged, but its effects become subtle. Subtlety defines the far future. Matter persists, but it no longer dominates behavior. Energy gradients flatten. Motion becomes less directed. Structures that formed earlier remain bound, but new ones rarely appear. Creation slows. Stars do not stop forming everywhere at once. They become uncommon as fuel is exhausted and gas is locked into long-lived remnants. The universe does not end star formation. It makes it improbable. Probability replaces certainty. In dense regions, rare events still occur. A small pocket of gas might collapse. A late star might ignite. But these are exceptions rather than trends. The universe's behavior becomes statistical rather than dynamic. Statistics favor stillness. Over immense spans of time, most matter settles into stable configurations. White dwarfs cool. Neutron stars spin down. Black holes remain nearly unchanged. These objects endure because they change slowly enough to survive. Survival does not imply activity. Enduring structures often do very little. They persist by remaining close to equilibrium, shedding energy slowly, interacting rarely. The universe increasingly consists of such quiet entities. This shift changes the character of existence. Earlier eras were defined by transformation. Fusion, collapse, explosion, assembly. Later eras are defined by persistence. Cooling, drifting, waiting. The universe does not transition into nothingness. It transitions into patience. Patience is built into physics. Without dense matter to drive rapid change, processes slow naturally. Time stretches, durations lengthen. The universe does not need to enforce this slowness. It emerges from conditions. As matter becomes rare, space becomes dominant. Space was always present, but it becomes more noticeable as matter thins. Expansion continues to increase the distance between remaining structures. Space does not compete with matter. It contextualizes it. Matter becomes islands. Each island exists within an expanding sea of space, largely unaffected by others. Communication between islands becomes unlikely. Light travels outward, stretching, fading, eventually becoming indistinguishable from background. The universe does not reconnect these islands. It allows separation to persist. This separation is not fragmentation. Nothing breaks, nothing shatters. Connections simply grow too long to matter. The universe does not insist on coherence across distance. It allows independence. Independence is quiet. Independent systems evolve without interference. They do not exchange energy. They do not influence one another. Each follows its own local conditions. The universe becomes decentralized. There is no dominant structure. No region defines the whole. Each island carries forward its own future, unaware of the rest. This decentralization is stable. No single failure can propagate across the universe. No event can destabilize everything. The universe becomes resilient through isolation. Resilience does not require strength. It requires scale. The universe is too large for disruption to spread widely. Even the most energetic events fade quickly relative to cosmic distance and time. As matter thins further, even islands become simpler. Complex structures decay. Bound systems slowly lose energy. Orbits decay. Particles interact less often. Complexity does not vanish abruptly. It unravels slowly. Entropy increases. This increase is not disorder in the everyday sense. It is redistribution. Energy spreads into more degrees of freedom. Differences flatten. Extremes soften. The universe does not resist this. Resistance would require coordination and energy. The universe does not maintain gradients artificially. It allows them to dissipate. Dissipation defines the long term. As energy spreads, fewer processes remain capable of doing work. This does not stop motion. It reduces directionality. Motion persists, but it no longer accumulates into change. Change becomes microscopic. At large scales, the universe appears static. At small scales, quantum fluctuations continue. Fields vibrate. Particles appear and vanish briefly. These fluctuations do not build into structure. They remain local. Local activity, without global consequence, becomes the norm. The universe becomes quiet, not because nothing happens, but because nothing connects. Connection requires proximity. As proximity disappears, silence grows. This silence is not emptiness. Space remains, time remains, law remains. The universe does not dissolve into nothing. It continues to exist under simpler conditions. Simpler does not mean lesser. It means less constrained. A universe with fewer interactions has fewer conflicts, fewer instabilities, fewer surprises. It behaves predictably. It unfolds smoothly. Smooth unfolding does not excite attention. It does not require monitoring. It does not generate narrative. It simply continues. Matter becoming rare does not signal an ending. It signals a transition to a different mode of existence. Existence without density. Existence without urgency. Existence without coordination. The universe has already experienced transitions like this. From opaque to transparent. From uniform to structured. From dense to spacious. Each transition unfolded without rupture. Each left the universe intact. This transition is no different. As matter thins, the universe does not collapse inward. It does not tear itself apart. It becomes more like itself, expansive, patient, quiet. The beginning was dense. The middle is structured. The far future is spacious. None of these states are privileged. They are phases of the same unfolding. Understanding this removes the sense of loss often associated with cosmic futures. Nothing essential is taken away. The universe does not lose its ability to exist. It loses only its need to change quickly. This slowing is natural. Fast processes require dense conditions. Slow processes dominate when density decreases. The universe follows this logic without exception. As matter becomes rare, time becomes abundant. Abundance of time does not create urgency. It removes it. There is no deadline, no approaching moment of significance. The universe does not count down. It counts only in sequence. Sequence continues regardless of content. Even when matter becomes exceedingly rare, even when interactions are nearly non-existent, one moment still follows another. Time does not end because events become rare. Time does not require events. It requires only change, however subtle. Subtle change persists indefinitely. This persistence does not need to be noticed. It does not need to be remembered. It does not need to be explained. The universe does not require an audience to continue. When space outlasts everything. As matter becomes increasingly rare, another feature of the universe becomes more prominent. Not because it grows stronger, but because everything else recedes. Space remains. This does not mean space suddenly appears or asserts itself. Space was always present. From the earliest moments, it defined distance, allowed separation, and shaped how everything else behaved. But as matter thins and interactions fade, space becomes the dominant presence simply by continuing. Space does not decay. It does not burn fuel. It does not collapse inward. It does not require maintenance. Expansion ensures that space becomes more abundant over time. Distances grow. Volumes increase. The universe becomes more space than matter, not by removal, but by proportion. This proportional shift changes how existence unfolds. When matter was dense, space was constrained. Interactions were frequent. Structure emerged quickly. As space expands, interactions lose frequency. The universe transitions from being matter-defined to space-defined. This transition is gradual. There is no threshold where matter stops mattering. Local systems remain bound and active. But globally, space sets the tone. It stretches everything apart gently, without interruption. Space does not push. It opens. Opening does not require effort. It is the natural consequence of expansion. Space increases not by exerting force, but by redefining distance. This redefinition is subtle. Two regions do not feel themselves being separated. Locally, nothing changes. Only when distances are compared over immense spans does expansion become apparent. Space acts everywhere and nowhere. It does not have a location. It does not originate from a point. It does not travel. It simply exists as the medium through which everything else relates. As space dominates, the universe becomes more uniform again. Not uniform in density, but in experience. With few interactions, most regions behave similarly. Expansion continues. Fields fluctuate minimally. Time passes quietly. Differences fade. Earlier eras were marked by contrast. Bright stars against dark backgrounds. Dense clusters against vast voids. As matter thins, these contrasts soften. Light sources dim. Structures endure but do not dominate perception. The universe becomes less textured. Texture requires variation. Variation requires interaction. Interaction requires proximity. As proximity decreases, texture smooths out. Smoothness returns. This return mirrors the universe's earliest state, though under very different conditions. Early uniformity arose from extreme density and temperature. Late uniformity arises from extreme spaciousness and cooling. The universe comes full circle without repetition. Conditions change, but the pattern remains. Simplicity emerges at extremes. Space outlasting everything does not mean space is empty. Even in regions devoid of matter, space-time exists. Fields permeate it. Quantum fluctuations continue. Geometry evolves. Nothing is truly void. Void is a relative term. It describes absence of matter, not absence of existence. As matter becomes rare, the universe does not become nothing. It becomes dominated by what was always there: distance, duration, and the framework that allows anything to exist at all. This dominance does not create drama. Space does not announce itself. It does not shine. It does not move. It expands, quietly increasing separation without introducing tension. Tension requires boundaries. As boundaries dissolve, tension fades. The universe relaxes into its geometry. Geometry, at cosmic scale, defines how everything relates. Curvature shapes motion. Expansion shapes distance. These features persist regardless of content. Space remains even when content thins. This persistence gives the universe stability. A universe that depended on matter to exist would fade as matter thinned. Our universe does not. It continues because its foundation is not substance, but structure. Structure here does not mean arrangement of matter. It means the rules governing relation. These rules do not weaken as the universe ages. Gravity continues to curve space-time where mass exists. Expansion continues to stretch space uniformly. Time continues to allow sequence. Law outlasts material expression. This longevity is important. It means the universe does not collapse into irrelevance when activity slows. It continues to behave consistently, even when there is little to observe. Observation is not required. The universe does not need content to justify its framework. It does not need events to validate its existence. It does not need interaction to persist. Space alone is sufficient. Sufficiency here does not imply minimalism in a philosophical sense. It reflects physical robustness. The universe does not rely on delicate balances that could fail. Its large-scale behavior is simple and stable. Expansion can continue indefinitely. This indefinite continuation does not imply infinity in the abstract. It implies that there is no known mechanism that would halt it. Space does not exhaust itself by expanding. Distance has no cost. Time accommodates this effortlessly. Even as matter becomes rare, time continues to pass. Without events, time does not stop. It does not compress. It does not disappear. Time does not require change to exist. It requires only sequence. Sequence persists as long as laws allow transitions from one state to the next. Space-time provides this structure regardless of content. This leads to a universe that persists quietly. Not frozen, not empty, not concluded, simply extended. The idea of an ending becomes less meaningful in this context. Endings imply cessation of process. Here, process continues at a reduced rate, not at zero. The universe does not end. It thins. Thinning is not termination. It is redistribution. Matter spreads. Energy disperses. Space expands. Nothing stops abruptly. This behavior is consistent with everything that has come before. The universe has never stopped one process before allowing another to begin. Expansion began and never ceased. Cooling began and never reversed. Structure formed and then stabilized. Continuation defines cosmic behavior. Space outlasting everything is not a prediction of emptiness. It is a recognition of endurance. Space endures because it does not depend on what occupies it. It persists whether filled or sparse, active or quiet. This endurance allows the universe to remain. Remain without emphasis, remain without demand, remain without narrative. The universe becomes less about what happens and more about the fact that something continues to exist. Existence does not require content. It requires framework. Space provides that framework. When structure no longer competes. As space continues to expand and matter becomes increasingly rare, the universe enters a regime where structure no longer needs to assert itself. There is no competition between formation and collapse, no tension between growth and decay. What remains has already proven capable of persisting. Competition fades. In earlier eras, structure emerged through contrast. Dense regions pulled matter inward, while expansion worked to separate it. Gravity and expansion existed in balance, each shaping outcomes depending on scale. This balance produced complexity, galaxies, clusters, stars, and the intricate web connecting them. Over time, that balance shifts. Expansion continues. Gravity remains, but its opportunities diminish. Where matter is already bound, gravity holds on. Where matter is diffuse, expansion carries it away. The universe does not create new arenas for structure to compete for existence. What survives does so quietly. Survival at cosmic scale is not a struggle. It is a consequence of stability. Structures that endure do so because they require little energy to maintain. They change slowly enough that entropy does not dismantle them quickly. Existence without urgency. As structure settles into long-term persistence, another quality begins to define the universe more strongly than any visible feature. Urgency disappears. Urgency is not a physical law. It is an emergent condition that arises when systems face limits. Limited energy, limited time, limited stability. In the early universe, urgency existed implicitly. Energy densities were high. Interactions were frequent. Conditions changed rapidly. Small differences mattered because they were amplified quickly. But as expansion continued and matter thinned, urgency lost its foundation. There was no longer pressure to resolve states quickly. No rapid transitions demanded completion. No crowded conditions forced outcomes. The universe entered a mode where processes could take as long as they needed. This is not stagnation. It is freedom from constraint. Without urgency, change does not stop. It stretches. It slows. It unfolds without deadline. The universe does not hurry toward equilibrium. It approaches it asymptotically, never fully arriving, never forced to conclude. This absence of urgency reshapes everything. In a universe without urgency, nothing needs to be optimized. There is no advantage to speed. There is no reward for efficiency. Processes occur because conditions allow them, not because outcomes are demanded. Stars no longer race to form. They form only when circumstances quietly align. Gas clouds drift for immense durations without collapsing. When collapse does occur, it unfolds slowly, regulated by physics rather than driven by necessity. Galaxies no longer rush to assemble. Mergers become rare. Interactions stretch over billions of years. Structures that exist persist mostly unchanged, evolving internally without external pressure. Black holes do not consume aggressively. They wait. They interact only when matter wanders close enough. Much of their existence passes without incident, defined by presence rather than action. The universe becomes patient not by choice, but by geometry. Expansion increases distance. Distance reduces interaction. Reduced interaction removes pressure. Pressure is what creates urgency. Without it, the universe relaxes into a steady unfolding. This unfolding has no preferred pace. Time does not accelerate or slow. What changes is how much happens within it. When events are rare, time feels expansive. When events are frequent, time feels compressed. The universe moves from compression toward expansion in both space and experience. Time becomes abundant. Abundance of time changes how change itself functions. With unlimited duration, processes do not need to complete quickly to matter. They can proceed infinitesimally, accumulating difference over vast spans. Even decay becomes gentle. Particles decay over timescales so long that they resemble permanence. Orbits decay so slowly they appear stable. Energy loss becomes imperceptible moment to moment, detectable only across unimaginable durations. Nothing is taken away suddenly. Suddenness is a feature of dense systems. In sparse systems, everything diffuses. The universe favors diffusion over disruption. This is why endings do not arrive. The universe does not reach a moment where activity stops. It approaches states where activity becomes increasingly subtle. Motion persists, but without spectacle. Change continues, but without urgency. Urgency requires an approaching boundary. The universe has none. There is no wall ahead, no final configuration waiting to be reached. Expansion does not aim for a stopping point. It defines a trajectory, not a destination. Destinations are human constructs. They arise from limited systems that must reach outcomes to persist. The universe is not such a system. It does not need to arrive anywhere to continue existing. Existence does not depend on completion. This is why the future of the universe is not an ending, but a continuation under quieter conditions. Nothing fails, nothing resolves, nothing collapses into finality. The universe simply becomes easier to sustain. Ease is an underrated cosmic feature. A system that requires constant intervention would not last. A system that becomes easier to maintain over time persists naturally. The universe evolves toward states that demand less from themselves. Low-demand states dominate. These states are characterized by low energy gradients, long timescales, and minimal interaction. They are stable, not because they are reinforced, but because nothing disrupts them. The universe does not defend these states. It merely allows them to persist. This allowance does not prevent novelty entirely. Rare fluctuations can still occur. Quantum events continue. Occasional interactions still arise. But these do not accumulate into new eras. They remain isolated. Isolation is stabilizing. In isolated systems, feedback loops do not grow. Changes do not cascade. Disturbances remain local. The universe becomes increasingly resistant to large-scale transformation. Resistance here does not mean rigidity, it means calm. Calm is the absence of pressure to change. Pressure creates urgency. Urgency drives transformation. Calm allows persistence. The universe moves steadily into calm. This calm does not eliminate complexity everywhere. Local pockets of complexity can persist for long durations. Bound systems retain internal dynamics, but these dynamics do not propagate outward. The universe becomes compartmentalized. Each region carries its own quiet future forward. No region waits for another. No synchronization is required. Everything unfolds independently under the same laws. This independence removes competition. There is no competition for matter, for energy, for relevance. Systems do not compare themselves. Outcomes are not ranked. Persistence is not rewarded beyond itself. The universe does not value anything. It allows everything that can endure to endure. This neutrality is profound. It means that nothing is excluded by design. Nothing is elevated by intention. Outcomes are shaped by conditions alone. Conditions change slowly. Therefore, outcomes change slowly. Slowness is not inefficiency at cosmic scale. It is the natural result of vastness. Large systems cannot change quickly without tearing themselves apart. The universe avoids this by expanding gently. Gentleness is structural. Expansion does not accelerate violently. It increases steadily. Even acceleration itself is smooth, not abrupt. There are no shocks associated with expansion. Space stretches without resistance. Resistance would generate urgency. The universe avoids resistance at large scale. This avoidance is why cosmic evolution feels calm when viewed broadly. Events that seem dramatic locally are absorbed into vast continuity. Supernovae explode, but their energy disperses quickly into surrounding space. Their impact fades. The universe continues unaffected. Galaxies collide, but collisions take billions of years. They are slow dances, not crashes. Stars rarely collide. Structure rearranges gently. Even the most energetic processes unfold slowly. Slowness protects continuity. A universe that allowed rapid global change would be unstable. The actual universe favors gradual transitions that preserve coherence. Coherence does not require awareness. It requires consistency. Consistency is the universe's defining feature. Laws do not change unpredictably. Processes behave the same way everywhere. This sameness allows the universe to persist without oversight. Oversight implies correction. The universe does not correct itself. It does not need to. When a configuration cannot persist, it fades. When one can, it remains. No judgment is applied. No intervention occurs. This is sufficient. As urgency disappears, so does the idea of progress. Progress implies movement toward improvement. Improvement implies criteria. Criteria imply preference. The universe does not exhibit preference. It does not move toward better or worse states. It moves toward allowed states. Allowed states are those consistent with conservation, expansion, and stability. They do not need to be optimal. They need only to be possible. Possibility governs everything. The universe explores its possibilities not by searching, but by unfolding. Initial conditions set a range. Laws constrain outcomes. Time allows exploration. Exploration is passive. There is no intention behind it. Outcomes are not selected. They arise. This passivity removes urgency completely. Nothing needs to happen next. The universe does not anticipate the next moment. It does not prepare. It does not rush. The next moment arrives because the previous one allows it. This chain does not break. Existence continues by replacement, not accumulation. Each moment replaces the last. Nothing piles up. Nothing demands resolution. Resolution is unnecessary. In systems with urgency, unresolved states create tension. In the universe, unresolved states simply persist until conditions change. There is no pressure to conclude. This is why cosmic questions often lack final answers. Not because knowledge is incomplete, but because the universe itself does not resolve into conclusions. It continues. Questions assume endpoints. The universe offers continuity. As urgency fades, interpretation becomes optional. Understanding does not change outcomes. Reflection does not influence behavior. The universe does not respond to insight. It remains the same whether or not it is understood. This does not diminish understanding. It frees it. Understanding can exist without responsibility. There is no burden to intervene, no requirement to fix, no pressure to align with cosmic purpose. There is no cosmic purpose to align with. There is only behavior. Behavior unfolds quietly. This quiet unfolding is not absence. It is presence without demand. The universe exists without asking anything of what exists within it. This is the deepest form of calm. Not imposed, not enforced, not achieved, simply present. As the universe moves deeper into this calm, it does not become less real. It becomes less insistent, less crowded, less urgent. Existence remains, and it remains without needing to be anything more than what it is. In the next chunk, we'll move into an even deeper layer of this future, where even time itself feels stretched beyond relevance, and continuity becomes almost indistinguishable from stillness. When time feels almost still. As urgency fades and change stretches across immense durations, time itself begins to feel different. Not because it stops, and not because its rules change, but because its effects become subtle enough to nearly disappear. Time does not end. It thins. In earlier eras, time was defined by events. Stars ignited. Galaxies collided. Matter collapsed and reorganized. Each event marked a before and an after. Time felt active because it carried transformation frequently enough to be noticed. As the universe grows quieter, these markers dissolve. Moments still follow moments. Sequence remains intact. But the differences between one moment and the next become so slight that they lose emphasis. Time continues without punctuation. This is not timelessness. It is continuity without contrast. Contrast is what gives time texture. Without contrast, time becomes smooth. It flows without drawing attention to itself. Nothing announces change. Nothing demands recognition. The universe does not notice this shift. It does not register that time feels different. Feeling requires awareness. The universe does not feel its own duration. It allows it. Allowance defines cosmic time. Time is not an actor. It does not push events forward. It provides the framework within which change can occur. When change slows, time does not compensate. It simply continues to allow. Allowance is neutral. There is no minimum rate of change required for time to exist. Even when change is infinitesimal, sequence persists. One configuration replaces another, even if the difference between them is nearly imperceptible. Near imperceptible does not mean non-existent. At quantum scales, fluctuations continue. Fields vibrate. Virtual particles appear and vanish. These processes do not build into structure, but they ensure that change never fully ceases. The universe never freezes. Freezing would require the absence of all motion. The laws of physics do not allow that. Even in the lowest energy states, activity persists at some level. Stillness is an approximation. At cosmic scale, approximation becomes dominant. When change is spread across durations far longer than any observer could experience, it becomes effectively invisible. Time remains, but it loses urgency. Urgency depends on approaching boundaries, deadlines, limits, thresholds. The universe approaches none. Expansion continues smoothly. Energy spreads gently. No final state waits ahead. Without a final state, there is nothing to hurry toward. The universe does not count down. This absence of countdown reshapes existence. In systems with deadlines, time compresses. Moments matter because they are limited. In a universe without deadlines, moments expand. They matter only because they occur, not because they must lead somewhere. Occurrence replaces outcome. The universe exists in occurrence. This does not mean events never happen. Rare events still occur. Collisions, decays, interactions. But these events do not define eras. They are isolated, absorbed into continuity without altering its character. Continuity dominates. Dominance here does not mean control. It means prevalence. Most of the universe's future consists of extended periods with very little happening. Not nothing, but very little. Little happening is not emptiness. It is stability. Stability is achieved when systems are close to equilibrium. The universe approaches this state not by force, but by dissipation. Energy gradients flatten. Motion becomes less directed. Change slows. Equilibrium is never fully reached. Time ensures asymptotic behavior. The universe approaches balance without arriving. There is always some difference left, some motion allowed, some change possible. This impossibility of completion is important. It prevents the universe from ending. An ending would require a final configuration beyond which change is impossible. The laws of physics do not point towards such a state. They allow change to continue indefinitely, however slowly. Time guarantees this. Guarantee does not imply intention, it implies consistency. The universe does not decide to continue. It does not evaluate options. It simply follows from one moment to the next because nothing prevents it from doing so. Prevention would require a rule that forbids further change. No such rule exists. This absence is why time feels endless. Endlessness here does not mean infinite in the abstract. It means unconstrained by a known limit. Time has no known boundary beyond which it cannot extend. Boundaries define urgency. Without boundaries, urgency dissolves. This dissolution changes how processes unfold. Processes do not rush to complete. They stretch. They linger. They approach outcomes without arriving. Decay processes slow as energy becomes scarce. Orbits persist. Structures endure. Endurance replaces transformation. Endurance does not imply stasis. It implies persistence under minimal change. The universe becomes a collection of long-lasting states connected by subtle transitions. The transitions matter only when viewed across immense spans of time. Perspective becomes essential. From a local, short-term perspective, nothing seems to happen. From a cosmic, long-term perspective, everything continues to change. Time exists in both perspectives simultaneously. The universe accommodates both without contradiction. This accommodation is another form of calm. Calm does not require the absence of motion. It requires the absence of disruption. The universe moves without disrupting itself. Self-disruption would require feedback loops capable of amplifying small changes into large ones. As interaction thins, such loops disappear. the universe becomes self-stabilizing. Stability emerges not from control, but from scale. Large systems resist rapid change because they contain too much distance, too much inertia, too much time. The universe is the largest system possible. Its stability is inevitable. This inevitability does not eliminate unpredictability locally. Local systems can still behave unpredictably. Quantum events remain probabilistic. Small systems can fluctuate. But these fluctuations do not propagate far, they are absorbed. Absorption is a feature of vastness. Vastness dampens extremes. Energy spreads. Motion dissipates. Disturbances fade. Time allows this fading. Time does not enforce it. The universe does not actively smooth itself. It allows smoothing to occur because nothing prevents it. This allowance leads to a future where time feels almost still. Almost. There is always motion, always sequence, always change. But the scale of change relative to the scale of time becomes so small that stillness becomes the dominant impression. Impression here is metaphorical. The universe does not perceive stillness. It simply continues. Perception is local. Local systems capable of perception become rare as conditions thin. Awareness does not spread. It contracts into isolated pockets, if it persists at all. The universe does not react to this contraction. It does not adjust its behavior when awareness fades. Existence does not require perception. This realization dissolves a common assumption that time needs to be experienced to matter. Time does not require experience. It requires only sequence. Sequence persists without observers. This is why the universe can be old without feeling old. Age is a comparison. Without memory or awareness, age has no meaning. The universe does not carry its age as an identity. It does not become something else because it has existed longer. It remains itself. This self-consistency allows time to stretch without consequence. There is no accumulation of wear, no degradation of law, no erosion of possibility. Possibility remains open, not open to anything, but open to what is allowed. Allowed outcomes continue to unfold, however slowly. This slow unfolding is not a waiting period. There is nothing to wait for. The universe does not anticipate a moment when change will resume or accelerate. It does not expect renewal. It does not expect conclusion. Expectation implies desire. The universe exhibits none. It exists in perpetual present. The present here is not a moment. It is a condition where time allows sequence without demanding outcome, where continuity persists without accumulation, where existence unfolds without urgency. This condition does not end. It deepens. As time extends further, the distinction between early and late loses relevance. The universe does not remember its beginning. It does not reference it. Beginnings matter only when transitions are rapid. When transitions are slow, beginnings dissolve into continuity. The cosmic explosion becomes less an event and more a boundary condition, one of many states through which the universe passed. Passed, but not remembered. Memory does not persist at cosmic scale. Time outlives memory. This is not a loss. It is a release. The universe is not burdened by its past. It does not carry history forward as obligation. It carries only the present state forward as consequence. Consequence is lighter than memory. Consequence shapes structure without storing narrative. This lightness allows time to flow without resistance. Resistance would slow or halt time. The universe does not resist itself. It allows itself. This allowance is why time can feel almost still without stopping. The universe approaches stillness without arriving. It becomes quiet without becoming empty. In the next chunk, we'll move into the final refinement of this quiet future, where even change itself becomes rare enough to fade into background, and existence becomes almost indistinguishable from duration. When change becomes background. As time stretches further and the universe settles into near stillness, change does not disappear. It becomes something else. No longer the defining feature of existence, change recedes into the background, subtle enough to exist without demanding recognition. Change becomes ambient. In earlier eras, change shaped identity. Stars formed and died. Galaxies assembled. Structure emerged. These transformations defined cosmic history because they altered the universe in noticeable ways. They created contrast. They produced eras. In the far future, change no longer does this. It continues quietly, at scales too small or too slow to redefine the whole. The universe does not stop evolving. It evolves gently enough that evolution itself loses prominence. This is not stagnation. Stagnation implies blocked pathways, halted processes, enforced stillness. The universe exhibits none of these. All pathways remain open. Processes continue. Nothing is forbidden. Nothing is compelled. Change persists without emphasis. At the largest scales, expansion continues. Space stretches steadily, increasing separation without altering local structure. This expansion is the most persistent form of change, yet it remains invisible locally. Galaxies do not feel themselves being carried apart. Atoms do not register expansion. Only distance accumulates. Accumulation without sensation defines the future. At smaller scales, matter continues its slow transformations. Long-lived particles persist. Some decay over unimaginable durations. Others remain stable indefinitely. Orbits persist. Fields fluctuate. These processes do not produce spectacle. They do not announce themselves. In a universe dominated by background change, events no longer define epochs. There is no clear distinction between one age and the next. Time flows without markers. Markers require contrast. Without contrast, chronology becomes continuous rather than segmented. The universe no longer moves through chapters. It moves through continuity. This continuity does not erase difference. Differences exist, but they are distributed. No single change reshapes the whole. Everything that happens is absorbed locally, dissipated before it can propagate widely. Propagation requires connectivity. As connectivity thins, change loses reach. This thinning is not a failure of communication. It is a natural consequence of expansion. Space grows faster than signals can traverse it. Light stretches and fades. Interactions weaken. The universe becomes less responsive to itself. Responsiveness requires feedback. Feedback loops amplify change. Without them, change remains small. The universe enters a regime where feedback is rare. Systems operate independently, insulated by distance. Insulation fosters calm. Calm here is not intentional. It is structural. Large systems with low interaction cannot sustain rapid change. The universe becomes large enough that it stabilizes itself automatically. Automatic stabilization is quiet. No regulation is applied. No balancing force intervenes. Stability emerges because instability cannot propagate. The universe becomes immune to disruption, not because it resists change, but because change cannot spread far enough to matter. This immunity does not prevent novelty entirely. Local novelty can still arise. Rare interactions may produce unusual outcomes. Quantum fluctuations continue, but novelty remains confined. It does not rewrite cosmic behavior. The universe allows novelty without consequence. This allowance is a hallmark of its maturity. Early universes amplify novelty. Small differences grow into structure. Later universes absorb novelty. Small differences dissolve into background. This shift does not reverse. The universe does not cycle back into amplification. Expansion prevents it. As space grows, the conditions required for widespread amplification disappear. Change loses leverage. Leverage requires density. Without density, even energetic events fade quickly. Consider black holes. Often imagined as eternal engines of transformation, black holes spend most of their existence doing very little. They persist as stable features of space-time, interacting rarely. Over extreme durations, they change subtly, shedding mass gradually through processes that do not resemble decay in any familiar sense. Their change is background change. It does not redefine surroundings. It does not propagate. It does not announce a transition. Even the most extreme objects become quiet. The universe does not privilege extremes. It absorbs them. This absorption smooths existence. Smoothing is not homogenization. Differences remain. But they do not interact strongly enough to create tension. Tension drives change. Without tension, change slows. This slowing does not eliminate time. It elongates it. Moments stretch. Sequences lengthen. The universe becomes a place where duration dominates over event. Duration is the simplest form of existence. Something exists for a long time without changing significantly. This is not trivial. It requires conditions that prevent disruption. The universe provides these conditions naturally through scale. Scale is the ultimate stabilizer. Small systems are fragile. Large systems are robust. The universe is the largest system possible. Its robustness increases as it grows. Growth here refers to expansion, not accumulation. As space expands, the universe becomes more tolerant of variation. Local fluctuations matter less. Differences average out. The whole becomes less sensitive to parts. This insensitivity is calm. Calm does not require uniformity. It requires indifference to disturbance. The universe exhibits this indifference increasingly over time. This does not mean the universe is static. Static implies fixed. The universe is dynamic. It changes continuously. But its changes are not directed toward any outcome. They do not accumulate into goals. Goals imply preference. The universe has none. Without preference, there is no pressure to change in specific ways. Processes unfold because conditions allow them, not because they lead somewhere. This is the deepest form of neutrality. Neutrality does not eliminate possibility. It preserves it. Everything that can happen is allowed to happen where conditions permit, but nothing is forced to happen everywhere. This selectivity through condition rather than intention defines cosmic behavior. As change becomes background, existence becomes foreground. Not existence as a concept, but existence as a condition. Things exist, persist, and continue without needing to justify their presence through activity. This persistence is quiet. Quiet persistence does not attract attention. It does not demand explanation. It simply remains. The universe becomes composed mostly of such persistence. Enduring structures, long durations, extended distances. This composition is not impoverished. It is stable. Stability is often mistaken for lack. In reality, stability is what allows existence to continue without collapse. The universe evolves toward stability not because it seeks it, but because unstable configurations exhaust themselves. Exhaustion does not imply violence. It implies dissipation. Dissipation spreads energy. Spread energy reduces gradients. Reduced gradients limit change. This cascade is gentle. No step involves abrupt termination. No stage erases what came before. Everything transitions smoothly. This smoothness defines the universe's character. Even its beginning was smooth at the largest scales. Even its most energetic phases were uniform and continuous. Smoothness was present from the start. The universe did not become calm. It revealed calm as scale increased. This revelation continues. As change fades into background, what remains is continuity. Continuity does not require explanation. It does not require awareness. It does not require memory. It requires only that nothing forbids the next moment. Nothing does. The universe permits itself. This permission is not granted by anything external. There is no external authority. The universe contains its own conditions. Containment here is not enclosure, it is sufficiency. The universe is sufficient unto itself. It does not need support. It does not need correction. It does not need direction. It continues because nothing prevents it. This lack of prevention is the simplest explanation possible. Complex explanations attempt to impose structure where none is required. The universe does not hide reasons behind its behavior. Its behavior is its reason. Behavior unfolds. Unfolding does not require awareness. Even if nothing were capable of noticing, unfolding would continue. This was true at the beginning. It remains true in the quiet future. The cosmic explosion did not inaugurate a story that must conclude. It set conditions that allow unfolding. Unfolding does not end. It slows, thins, and softens. Change becomes background. Existence becomes primary. This is not an ending. It is a settling into duration so vast that change no longer competes with continuity for attention. In the next and final chunk of this extended sequence, we'll allow even this background change to fade from focus, resting on the simplest observation left, that the universe continues without requiring anything else to be added. The simplest thing that remains, after change becomes background, after urgency dissolves, after structure thins into persistence, there is very little left to remove from the picture. What remains is not an object. It is not a process. It is continuation. The universe continues. This statement sounds almost empty, but it is the most complete description possible. Everything else, matter, energy, structure, time, exists within this continuation. When all complexity fades into subtlety, continuation remains unchanged. Continuation does not need reinforcement. It does not require momentum. It does not require intention. It does not require purpose. It exists because nothing interrupts it. Interruption would require a rule that forbids the next moment. Physics contains no such rule. Every known law allows one state to follow another. Even when change becomes infinitesimal, sequence persists. The universe does not arrive at a moment where nothing happens. It arrives at moments where nothing noticeable happens. Noticeability is not a requirement for existence. Existence does not scale with attention. For most of the universe's lifespan, past and future, nothing is watching. Nothing is recording. Nothing is interpreting. Yet the universe exists fully within those unwitnessed moments. This is not absence. It is autonomy. The universe does not depend on interpretation to justify itself. It does not need to be framed as meaningful to continue. It does not slow when it is ignored. It does not accelerate when it is examined. It is stable without feedback. Stability here is not static balance. It is dynamic consistency. Laws apply the same way everywhere, at all times, regardless of circumstance. This consistency allows the universe to persist without supervision. Supervision implies correction. The universe does not correct itself. When configurations cannot persist, they fade. When they can, they remain. No preference is applied. No outcome is favored. Persistence selects itself. This selection is not active. It is structural. States that dissipate quickly are transient. States that dissipate slowly dominate over time. Time amplifies endurance. Over immense durations, what remains is what changes least. This is not because change is forbidden, but because slow change accumulates less disruption. The universe becomes defined by what can endure without effort. Effort is a local phenomenon. It emerges where systems are constrained, where energy is scarce, where outcomes matter. At cosmic scale, constraints loosen. Energy spreads. Outcomes lose significance. The universe does not struggle to exist. It exists because existence is allowed. This allowance is the simplest condition imaginable. Nothing needs to be added. Nothing needs to be maintained. Nothing needs to be optimized. The universe does not seek improvement. Improvement implies dissatisfaction. The universe exhibits none. It does not compare its current state to a past one. It does not aim toward a future state. It does not evaluate itself. Evaluation requires criteria. Criteria require preference. The universe does not prefer. Without preference, there is no goal. Without a goal, there is no direction. Without direction, there is no urgency. This absence of urgency is not emptiness. It is openness. Openness allows everything permitted by law to occur somewhere, sometime, without forcing it to occur everywhere. The universe does not exhaust its possibilities quickly. It unfolds them slowly. This slow unfolding is not a waiting period. Waiting implies anticipation. The universe does not anticipate. Anticipation requires awareness of a future state. The universe does not hold future states in mind. It arrives at them through sequence, not expectation. Sequence replaces narrative. Narrative implies structure imposed on time. Beginnings, middles, endings. The universe does not impose narrative on itself. It allows sequence to flow without segmentation. Segmentation is an observer's tool. Without observers, time remains unsegmented. This does not make time meaningless. Meaning is not a requirement. Time does not exist to be meaningful. It exists to allow one state to follow another. That is sufficient. When matter becomes rare, when space dominates, when structure no longer competes, when urgency dissolves, when change becomes background, what remains is this simple fact. There is a next moment, and then another. Nothing compels them. Nothing prevents them. This is the deepest quiet. Not silence as absence, but quiet as continuity without demand. The universe does not rest. Rest implies fatigue. The universe does not tire. It does not expend itself by existing. Expansion does not drain a resource. Time does not erode a supply. Existence does not deplete anything fundamental. The universe is not running down in the way machines do. It is redistributing. Redistribution spreads energy, reduces gradients, softens change. But redistribution does not eliminate existence. It rearranges it. Even in extreme futures, rearrangement continues. Fields fluctuate. Space-time evolves. Quantum processes persist. The universe does not arrive at a static tableau. It arrives at a regime where change is gentle enough to be almost irrelevant. Almost. Almost is important. It preserves openness. If change truly ceased, the universe would end. But change does not cease. It approaches zero without reaching it. This asymptotic behavior ensures continuity without culmination. This is why cosmic futures lack drama. Drama requires conflict, stakes, resolution. The universe does not generate stakes. It does not frame outcomes as successes or failures. Everything that happens is equally permitted. This equality removes hierarchy. No moment is more important than another. No era is privileged. The beginning is not sacred. The future is not ominous. They are conditions within the same unfolding. The cosmic explosion did not elevate the early universe above the late universe. It did not establish a narrative arc that must resolve. It established expansion. Expansion continues. Everything else follows from that. Cooling follows, structure follows, separation follows, quiet follows. These are not chapters in a story. They are consequences of geometry and law. The universe behaves the way it does because it cannot behave otherwise given its conditions. This lack of alternative is not limitation. It is definition. The universe is what it is because it unfolds according to itself. Nothing external shapes it. Nothing external judges it. Nothing external concludes it. There is no outside. Without an outside, there is no finality. Finality requires an external frame within which something can end. The universe has no such frame. Ending is not defined. Therefore, continuation dominates. This realization does not diminish mystery. It refines it. Mystery does not reside in hidden purposes or final destinations. It resides in the fact that existence continues at all, under such simple rules, without supervision or goal. The universe is not mysterious because it is dramatic. It is mysterious because it is sufficient. Sufficiency means nothing more is required. No extra explanation, no underlying intention, no ultimate reason. Existence unfolds because it can. This can is the deepest statement physics makes. Can, not should. Can, not must. Can, not why. The universe does not justify itself. It does not apologize. It does not explain. It continues. This continuation is not fragile. It has persisted for billions of years already, through dramatic changes in density, temperature, structure, and scale. There is no indication it is approaching a condition where continuation becomes impossible. Everything points toward further unfolding, slower, quieter, more spacious, but still unfolding. The quiet after the cosmic explosion was not an aftermath. It was the universe expressing its most stable mode. The explosion was not violence. It was compression giving way to expansion. The quiet that followed was not recovery. It was normalcy emerging. And that normalcy continues. It does not crescendo. It does not conclude. It does not resolve. It simply allows the next moment, and then the next. Nothing more is required. Nothing more is added. The universe remains. That is the simplest thing that remains. Nothing needs to happen. At the deepest level of the universe's future, there is no longer any requirement for events. This does not mean events are impossible. It means they are unnecessary. The universe does not depend on happenings to justify its existence. It does not require motion to remain real, change to remain valid, or structure to remain meaningful. When everything that could demand attention has softened into background, the universe reaches its most stable condition. Nothing needs to happen. This statement is not emptiness. It is completeness. In earlier eras, something always needed to happen. Energy had to redistribute. Matter had to cool. Structure had to form. These needs arose from imbalance. Dense beginnings demanded release. Differences demanded resolution. Motion demanded outcome. But as expansion carried everything outward and gradients flattened, these demands dissolved. Demand is local. It emerges where conditions are constrained. At cosmic scale, constraints loosen until they disappear. The universe becomes large enough that no single process is required to maintain coherence. Coherence sustains itself. This self-sustaining nature is quiet. There is no maintenance cycle, no cosmic mechanism ensuring balance, no corrective force stepping in when things drift. Drift is allowed. Imbalance is allowed. But imbalance no longer accumulates into urgency. Urgency has nowhere to attach. Without urgency, time loses pressure. Moments do not push toward resolution. They do not stack toward consequence. They simply replace one another. Replacement is gentle. Each moment gives way to the next without friction. Nothing resists the transition. Nothing accelerates it either. Time proceeds at its own neutral pace. Neutrality defines everything here. The universe does not favor motion over stillness or complexity over simplicity. It does not seek variety or uniformity. It allows whatever persists to persist. Persistence becomes the dominant trait. Persistence does not require effort. Effort implies resistance. Resistance implies opposing forces. In the far future, opposition thins. Forces still exist, but they do not clash frequently enough to generate tension. The universe does not struggle with itself. This absence of struggle does not erase physics. Gravity remains. Expansion remains. Quantum behavior remains. What changes is their expression. Gravity holds bound systems together quietly. Expansion stretches space without resistance. Quantum fluctuations continue without accumulating into structure. Everything behaves as it always has, but without competition. Competition is what creates drama. The universe sheds drama naturally. Drama arises when outcomes matter. Outcomes matter when resources are scarce or time is limited. In the far future, time is abundant and resources are widely dispersed. Scarcity dissolves. When nothing is scarce, nothing needs to be claimed. When nothing needs to be claimed, nothing needs to be defended. When nothing needs to be defended, nothing needs to be won. The universe enters a state beyond contest. This does not require coordination. It emerges from scale. Scale does the work of peace. As distances grow and interactions thin, the universe becomes incapable of large-scale conflict. No event can dominate the whole. No structure can impose itself universally. Imposition requires reach. Reach fades. This fading is not failure. It is insulation. Each region becomes insulated from others by distance and time. This insulation prevents disturbance from spreading. Stability increases automatically. The universe becomes robust through separation. Robustness does not require rigidity. It requires tolerance. The universe tolerates variation because variation cannot propagate far. Local changes remain local. The whole remains unaffected. This tolerance allows everything to exist without pressure to conform. There is no global state that must be maintained. Maintenance implies fragility. The universe is not fragile. It does not depend on precise balances that could fail. It depends on laws that operate consistently, regardless of condition. Consistency outlasts complexity. Complex arrangements can fail. Simple rules persist. As the universe simplifies its expression, it becomes increasingly governed by its most fundamental features: space, time, and the relations between them. These features do not wear out. They do not age. They do not decay. They persist because they are not made of parts that can be exhausted. Space does not run out of space. Time does not run out of moments. Relation does not run out of possibility. This inexhaustibility is quiet. It does not produce abundance in the sense of activity. It produces abundance in the sense of allowance. Anything that can continue is allowed to continue. This allowance does not imply encouragement. It implies absence of prohibition. The universe does not prohibit its own continuation. This is the most fundamental fact. If it did, everything would end. It does not. Therefore, everything continues. Continuation does not need to be filled. Empty time is not a problem. Empty space is not a problem. The universe does not experience boredom. Boredom requires desire for change. The universe has none. Desire implies dissatisfaction. The universe does not evaluate its state. Evaluation requires perspective. Perspective requires location and memory. The universe has no single location and no memory. Therefore, it cannot evaluate itself. It simply is. This is not static. It unfolds. Unfolding does not require purpose. It requires only that each state follows from the last. This condition is always satisfied. Nothing in physics blocks the next moment. Even in extreme futures, where change becomes vanishingly small, sequence persists. Sequence is enough. The universe does not need progress. Progress implies direction. Direction implies destination. The universe has none. Destinations are defined by boundaries. The universe has no boundary. Without boundary, there is no there to arrive at. Therefore, movement has no goal. Movement occurs without aim. This aimlessness is not chaos. It is neutrality. Neutrality stabilizes. When nothing is aimed for, nothing can fail to be reached. Failure disappears. Success disappears. Only occurrence remains. Occurrence is impartial. It does not elevate some moments over others. Every moment exists equally. The early universe was not more important than the late universe. The cosmic explosion was not more meaningful than the quiet that followed. They are conditions, not achievements. Understanding this removes hierarchy from time. Time does not climb. It does not descend. It extends. Extension is linear without preference. The universe does not improve or degrade. It changes form. Form change does not imply value change. Value is not a cosmic property. It is local. Local systems may value complexity, novelty, or stability. The universe does not. It accommodates all without preference. Accommodation is passive. It does not require management. It does not require balance. It does not require correction. The universe is not an organism. It does not heal. It does not decay. It does not strive. It persists. Persistence is sufficient. When nothing needs to happen, the universe is most itself, not because it has reached an ideal state, but because it no longer carries unresolved conditions demanding change. Demand is the engine of drama. The universe turns that engine off naturally. It does not stall. It coasts. Coasting implies motion without propulsion. The universe coasts through time. Expansion provides the gentle push. Nothing resists it. Nothing accelerates it into instability. This smooth motion defines the far future. Smoothness does not erase detail. It makes detail irrelevant at scale. At scale, only continuity matters. Continuity is not exciting. It is stable. Stability allows existence to persist indefinitely without supervision. Supervision implies risk. The universe does not need supervision. It is not at risk. This absence of risk is not safety. Safety implies danger avoided. The universe does not recognize danger. It allows all permitted outcomes. Some outcomes fade quickly. Some persist. None are judged. Judgment requires criteria. The universe has none. Without criteria, there is no urgency to change. Without urgency, nothing needs to happen. And so, nothing does. Not in the sense of absolute stillness, but in the sense that no event is required to justify the next moment. Moments follow moments freely. This freedom is the final calm. Not imposed, not achieved, not earned, simply present. The universe began with conditions that allowed expansion. Expansion allowed cooling. Cooling allowed structure. Structure allowed complexity. Complexity allowed awareness. Awareness allowed reflection. Reflection allowed stories. But stories are optional. The universe does not need them. After stories end, after awareness fades, after complexity thins, the universe remains exactly as capable of continuing as it ever was. Nothing essential is lost. Nothing essential was ever added. Existence was sufficient from the start. The quiet after the cosmic explosion was not the universe settling down. It was the universe revealing that it never needed to rise up. It only needed to continue. And it does.